Having to talk for 5 minutes really does focus your mind. I found that when I wrote my first bit, I got to sort of 12 minutes, and then I cut some out and added bits in, and it was up to 20, so I stripped it all away. My thunder was stolen very beautifully by Lady Susan, who gave a speech a few weeks ago about her role at Government House. I currently work at Government House, and I'm not going to speak about that. I reverted to a former position at the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew. Excuse me. And I'm going to match my story. I'm not specifically going to talk to these photographs. I'm just going to talk, and this is really to keep you entertained while I talk about me. Prior to having children, I worked at the New Zealand Manufacturers Federation and the Electrical Contractors Federation, and then spanned another 20 years working from home. Thank you. Thank you, Francis. I became the National Administrator for the New Zealand Society for Music Therapy, and finally chairperson before I left for the UK 6 years ago. I owe a lot to the people who were with me in music therapy, a former Chancellor of Massey University, a former General Manager of Learning Media and an educational consultant, who said to me, you should return to university and get a proper qualification. At the thought of that, I won't tell you what age, but at quite mature age, I decided that perhaps they were right. My boys were leaving the nest and it was time to do something like that. So I undertook postgraduate study at Victoria University and graduated with my son in 2001. At this time I started working at the graduate school, which then became the School of Government, and I became the business manager for the School of Government. During my time there, my husband died, and despite being a person who believes that it is only you who shapes your own destiny and you take the chances that are offered to you in your life, I found I was working 12 hours a day. I was loving it, but my life was going nowhere. Excuse me. An opportunity to attend a counter-terrorism seminar in Italy led to some minor work for the Victoria Foundation. And on my return, this led me to thinking, what if I went to the UK and spent some time travelling around with a little bit of work? So through the support of Tricia Walbridge, who's here today, I submitted a job application or a job proposal to Victoria that I would support a newly established trust in London. They took me up on the offer, and this led to 18 months of the most amazing experiences and building a database of around 500 Victoria alumni. Some pretty amazing people I met during that time. After that contract finished, I did some other contract work, and I'd been offered a new role with the University of Surrey, and this was to bridge the gap between business and academia. And during my time at Victoria, I had very much seen the potential and opportunities that this offered. So I was very tempted, but I'd also been to 2 other interviews. And I kept putting off replying and went for a holiday in Tenerife. I was sitting around the pool and I got this phone call saying, you really need to decide, Barbara, what you're doing. So I sat there and I finally said on the phone, I'll decline. I think then I probably looked around, I had a cocktail in my hand, probably had another cocktail, and thought, what have I done? But on my return, I was driving through the Sussex countryside from another job interview, and I got a call, and I was invited to take up a role at the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew. I worked for the director there. I was head of the executive directorate, and what followed was 4.5 years of, again, amazing experiences. I worked in a science powerhouse that most people regard as a nice garden, and that was some of the challenge of making the public aware that it wasn't just a nice garden. I arrived just prior to their celebration of 250 years. I led the reception for Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Philip. that was an amazing experience in itself. Kew is a World Heritage Site. It has a collection of between 7 to 8 million dried specimens. They don't actually know how many are in the herbarium. There are 3 art galleries, and it has one of the largest, well, I think it is the largest collection of botanical art in the world, with over 300,000 pieces. They have applied science laboratories, which have made major discoveries in genetics and cures for TB, for malaria, and very extensive. It is the plant quarantine facility for the UK. There are 3 great glass houses, probably some of which you've seen, the Temperate House and the Palm House. And when I left, they were in the middle of a project to restore the Temperate House, which would cost £35 million. And that involved taking the whole thing completely down, taking it away, restoring it in like materials, and then building it all up again. Probably the greatest conservation project in the world is at the second Kew site in Wakehurst Place, and that is the Millennium Seed Bank. This is a project that was set up and funded seed banks around the world. When I left, it was in 54 countries. They collect seeds, they bank them in the country of origin, and they bank them at Kew. These are all stored in underground vaults that are nuclear-proof, bomb-proof, flood-proof, anything you can think of proof, at minus 21 degrees. But they're not just stored and left, they're tested for viability. They're regularly brought out and checked on a regular cycle when it's determined how often they need to be brought out and checked. And they quite often are grown on and new seeds collected from them. And the benefit of banking seeds is that we do not know what the secrets are of seeds that we may not know now. So some of the cures and things that have been found have been from plant materials, and it's what we don't know that the seeds may provide for the future. But there's not much more time to enthuse about Kew. I met some amazing people. David Attenborough I regularly picked up. He produced the Kingdom of Plants that you, I think, saw recently here in New Zealand. He was a grumpy old... he used to jump in the car and say, oh, yes. Good morning, David. A lot of the royals visited. We had Prince Charles, the Queen and the Duke. Princess Alexandra was a frequent visitor as she lived nearby. Princess Anne, I had the absolute privilege of organising her personal private 60th birthday party that she knew nothing about. And you saw a room like this transformed by 2 people who came in who were the chief party wedding organisers for London and the principal florist for London. And they just came in with truckloads of lamps, of rugs, of florists' equipment. It was just, I sort of stood there and thought, wow, amazing. But I think my fondest memory is the passion of the people who worked at Kew. This has really left me with a desire and a knowledge and a responsibility for promoting conservation and sustainability for future generations. It was an amazing experience. Thank you.